Hey everyone, it's Katie, and today I wanted to talk with you all about the number one reason why the Sinclair Method does not work for people. And in this video, I'm not going to talk about common challenges like lack of compliance with the method or, lack of habit change or lack of behavior change coupled with the medication. While these are things that can be stumbling blocks for people on the Sinclair Method, I think the number one reason why it doesn't work for people goes deeper than that. And to me, it really boils down to someone's internal motivation to change. This is something where, I think a lot of people struggle with this because our motivation for things can really wane no matter what it is. I know people get started on the Sinclair Method, they're super motivated and excited because it's this new thing, and then they're on it for a month or two and it kind of loses its novelty. And like with anything, our motivation can fade. And there's an awesome quote, I just sent an email earlier this week that included it, by John Maxwell, that says, "Motivation is what gets you going, but discipline is what keeps you growing." And so I think that this internal motivation piece is what causes people to perhaps stumble or not be fully committed to the Sinclair Method. They may get on the method and mentally, want to make this change, know that logically they want to drink less, and they've seen how alcohol is negatively impacting their life and the current relationship they have. But then they get going on the method and they struggle with things like compliance or mindfulness, or they're just making the choices that aren't really setting themselves up for success. Things like they're not eating before they're drinking, or they're still drinking hard alcohol instead of switching to something softer like beer or wine. And all of these things really boil down to someone's internal motivation to change and really their readiness to change. And this isn't to put blame on any person, because I think, there's a cycle of change chart, which maybe I'll put up on the screen right now for you guys to see, where we can see that people go through different phases of change. And each of these phases are really important steps that someone has to go through before they're even ready to change. One of these stages is really being in a state of just not wanting to change at all, or not even being aware that there's a problem here. And so we first have to become aware of an issue if we want to really change it. And so it is important for people to cycle through these different phases of change. And I think each one builds upon the other and really gets somebody ready to change. But if they start on the Sinclair Method and they're not fully committed, like 100%, I'm in this to fully, comply and see success with the method, what's going to happen is that they are going to have issues and stumbling blocks and not make the progress that they're hoping to make. So how is it that someone gets enough internal motivation to change that not only the motivation gets them started on the method, but then they can have enough self-discipline to really keep going on the method and be committed and make the right choices that are really going to set themselves up for success and allow them to ultimately reach extinction as quickly as possible, so that they can get free from AUD and move on from this issue. So there are a few different things I wanted to touch on here. And the first one is that when we want to change, we really need to have a purpose behind it and understand our why behind why we're making this change. And this is why in our TSM Essentials course, we actually have a whole video and exercise about defining your why for TSM, because it is so important for us to get clear on our purpose and why we're doing this. And I mentioned this in an email I sent out earlier this week as well. Like, if we go into this and we're like, well, we just want to drink less, or I want to have better health. Yes, those are reasons why that we want to change, but it's not really getting to the core of who we are and really the meat of why it is that we want to change. So that's the first step to really build up this motivation that will then lead to discipline and the ability to kind of keep doing the things that are needed to have success on TSM. So the first thing is really getting clear on your reason why, or your reasons why you're doing this, and make them something that's so meaningful and tangible and something that you can feel in your whole being really viscerally, like, this is why I want to do this. And that can take time to uncover, but there's, you can go through this this exercise with yourself where you can really get clear on like, why do I want to change my drinking? What's really going on here? And who do I want to become in the future? You know, imagining our future for where we want to be and where we could be if we don't make this change can be a good starting place to understand our why behind getting on TSM. So the second thing that someone needs when they're developing this motivation and discipline to get committed to this method is really excitement and emotion around it. If we get going on the Sinclair method and we're kind of just passively taking the medication and passively doing it and not really feeling super excited about it, then it's so easy to skip doses and just kind of keep doing what we've always done. And so to do anything that you can possible to really invoke a lot of emotion behind why you're doing this method. And for me, what was super helpful was really envisioning the future I wanted for myself and all of these dreams that I had that I'd kind of never spoken about, but things I've always wanted to do. I would just bring them up and like bring them up into my conscious awareness and really meditate on them and reflect on them and hold that vision for the future self I wanted to be and who I wanted to become. And it would allow me to get this excitement built up in the day-to-day of TSM where it can become kind of mundane. So that's where having a vision and a clarity of purpose can really help you to get emotional about it and get excited about it, because that emotion is really going to be what's going to continue to drive you forward on the Sinclair method. So again, you need to define your why. The second thing is you have to get emotional about it and get excited about it. And you can do that through envisioning the future self that you really want to become. And I'm talking about dreaming here, like dream whatever you want to dream of who you want to become. You know, I think it's easy for us to kind of dismiss those childhood or dreams we had when we were younger, just, oh, that's never going to happen, you know, to kind of have that belief. But to really dream big here about who you want to become, because as cliche as it sounds, anything is possible when you are not obsessing on alcohol all of the time and it becomes just this smaller and smaller part of your life. And so once you understand your why behind this method and you're able to get more excited about it, the third thing is really that consistency with it. And the thing with TSM is, and really any meaningful change, is that the most progress comes by these tiny steps that we do consistently every single day. So it doesn't need to be this monumental thing that you do overnight that makes this change. And that's the beauty of TSM, is it's really these gradual changes that are quite subtle, but they're progressive and continuous along the way. So it's in those little tiny daily decisions that you decide to make every single day that will ultimately lead to your long-term success on the Sinclair method. And I mentioned earlier in this video, you know, the choices that we make, like whether or not to drink hard alcohol, that is such maybe an insignificant choice that seems in the moment like, well, it's not really going to make that big of a deal. But it really makes such a big deal. And I see this over and over again with people I coach on this method, is that hard alcohol piece. If they're still relying on hard alcohol and they're drinking that, it can really prolong the process on TSM. And of course, it's not true for everyone, but that's just such a common thing I see. So that decision in the moment, it might seem like a really small, insignificant decision, and it's really easy to just kind of keep drinking hard alcohol. But as soon as you decide to make that shift and transition to a lighter version of alcohol, that one decision is going to send you on a whole new trajectory. And the same thing is true with deciding whether or not to comply with the medication, or deciding whether or not to eat a meal before you start drinking. These in themselves are really small decisions that in the moment they're really easy to do, but they're also really easy not to do. But the thing is, with any meaningful behavior change, it's in those tiny little decisions that really add up to big results over time. You may not see a huge difference today or tomorrow or in a week from now, but that's where you're going to see the difference in the long run, in the month, several months down the road. So those are the three things that I think can help somebody to develop that intrinsic motivation to really change on the Sinclair method and get excited about this process. You know, again, we go through these cycles of behavior change. And so if you're not there yet, perhaps consider these three things and do them as an exercise or as a conscious reflection or a journaling exercise where you can really, get clear on your why or your reasons why you're doing this method, and really dig deep to dig up those meaningful reasons that are coming from your heart and your soul's desire of who you want to be and who you want to become, and what you're sacrificing by keeping your current relationship with alcohol. There's so much that alcohol, when taken in excess, it just takes away from our life. And so to really start creating a list of all the reasons why you're doing this method, and not just superficial reasons why, but really the meat of why it is you want to make this change, why it is you even stumbled upon this method or started researching it or got the Naltrexone prescription. And then the second thing, getting super excited and putting a lot of emotion behind those whys. And I think doing visualization exercises are things that can really help invoke that emotion. If you can see in your mind's eye what your future self can look like, if you can feel it and smell it and taste it and experience it, and just constantly bring that vision into your daily life, that can help you to get super excited about it. And just doing really simple things like watching an inspirational video every day or reading an inspirational book, just to keep you constantly excited about where you're going and where you want to be in the future. And then of course the third thing is that consistency, and the consistency in the small things. You don't need to go out and make any drastic change, but those tiny little decisions that we make every single day are what add up to the results on the Sinclair Method. It's not any magic thing or any magic event that's going to happen. It's those tiny little decisions that seem really insignificant in the moment, and maybe they won't even make a difference in the short term, in the next day or week, but it's those decisions that put you on a whole new trajectory toward long-term success on the Sinclair Method. So I hope this video was encouraging and helpful, and I will talk to you guys again soon. Bye.